And sometimes when we have Hashgacha Pratis, when we believe that everything is mapped out by Hashem, that's sometimes when the greatest miracles happen. So speaking about miracles, of course we're going into Hanukkah, but I have to tell you a story that you probably never ever heard before. You may never, so it's kedai to listen. There was once a soldier serving in the Russian army. Now this was no regular soldier. This was a very heilige Torah bacher that was used to sitting and learning many, many hours a day. He was learning Rashbas and Gemaras, and he was davening, and he would say Tehillim. He was a really heilige chashav bacher. And what happened was, Rachmana litzlan le'aleinu, there was a big war that broke out in Russia, and he was drafted to the Russian army. And it was very terrible for this bacher, because besides the fact that he was used to, instead of serving the Russian army, he was serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he was learning Torah all day, but his biggest fear, the thing that he was so scared of most, was that they were going to war against Prussia, which later became Germany. And what happened was, his biggest fear was that Chas v'Shalom, maybe he's going to hurt another Yid because there were Jews that were residing in the other army, and maybe Chas v'Shalom, the worst imaginable thing that can happen is they would kill another Yid. But he was drafted, and he knew that his life was on the line, and he had to go. And it was very, very, very hard, because these were terrible people. They would get drunk all the time. They would say bad words, nivel peh. And it was a very bad situation, very bad hashpah that had on this bacher. And weeks went on. And finally one day, while this boy he was not used to anything, he was this weak little boy, and he couldn't hold a gun, and he couldn't carry any of the material. Every time he'd go out to war, he was literally limping, and he couldn't carry anything, and it was so hard for him. And one day he just decided, he saw this tree stump in the middle of the field, while he's supposed to be fighting and killing other people. He's just like, you know what, I can't do it anymore. And he just plopped on this tree, on this stump in the middle of a field, in the middle of the war, and he just started to relax, and he took out a mishnayos from his pocket, and he started learning. And all of a sudden, he was like in this whole, he was learning Torah, and he felt so connected again to Shemayim and to Hashem, and he felt like he was doing the right thing. And lo and behold, all of a sudden, a bullet went right into his stomach. And he's aching, and he feels like he's about to die. And he's in such pain, and he's wondering, how can it be that the second that I took on my mishnayos, after all these weeks in the war, all of a sudden, the second that I'm learning mishnayos, that's when Hashem decides I should get shot? And he's sitting and aching and bleeding. And to make matters worse, there was a German soldier who came over, a Russian soldier, this big, huge, tall guy, and he was this little wimp. And the Russian soldier took his big boot and kicked him. And this bacher, this boy, went flying. And again, gets out on the floor, he's unconscious, he's literally feeling like he's about to die. And all he remembers after is that, how can it be? I was just learning mishnayos. It was finally like the perfect situation. I should have been protected, but instead I got shot in the stomach, and then I got kicked by this iron boot in my stomach again, and now I'm literally dying. And as he's having these machshavos, these thoughts, all of a sudden, he hears a loud explosion. And he knows something just happened. And he was in terrible pain, and he saw everything was bleeding and gushing, and he had enough koach to look back. And what did he see? He saw there was a rocket that landed right on the tree stump that he was learning his mishnayos on. And then he realized it wasn't because he was learning that Hashem didn't care and Hashem wasn't watching. It was just the opposite. It was the schus of the Torah. It was the schus of those mishnayos that literally saved his life. As we go into Hanukkah and we're learning about Yosef HaTzadik, we remember Hashem does nisim, and we should never think when we're doing the right thing that maybe it's not the right thing, maybe something else. As long as we do the right thing, we can always look back at Hashgacha Pratis and always know Hashem is looking back at us, protecting us, supervising us, and loves us more than anything. And sometimes when things seem dark and we see Hastaras Panim, that's in fact the most when Hashem is watching over us and carrying us. Good Tvach.